My friend texted me a photo of my wife and her old boyfriend, and my whole world shattered. All those years of trust and love all crumbled within seconds, and now I have to pick the pieces of what I thought was a perfect marriage. So here I am, writing this at 3 a.m. because sleep is clearly not an option. Not sure if I'm seeking advice or if I just need to vent. The last few months have been quite a journey. My wife Jessica, 39F, and I, 40M, have been married for 7 years. We met at a charity event through mutual friends, hit it off instantly, and I thought honestly that we had one of those rare forever relationships. We both work at separate schools. I work in high school English. She currently teaches 5th grade. We had talked about having children, but decided to travel and focus on our professional lives first. I kept thinking we had lots of time. Our life together was, well, comfortable. Not in the boring way. We had our routines, of course, but we'd also experiment together, cooking classes, weekend trips. We took up rock climbing last year. I genuinely thought we had the kind of marriage everybody else coveted. Good communication, shared values, enough independence, but a strong bond. We had each other's passwords, commingled finances, the whole deal. Well, it turns out when the foundation is solid, you don't think to check for cracks beneath the surface. It started just over 3 months ago, when Jess mentioned that her college was planning its 15-year reunion in Chicago. We live 2 hours east in a smaller town. She hadn't been in touch with many people from college, but suddenly did seem super excited about reconnecting with her college family, as she referred to them. "Ryan, I can't believe it has been 15 years already," she said one evening, scrolling through the event page. "Seems like everybody's going to be here. This is going to be amazing. I naturally thought we would go together. I said we should make a weekend of it. Get a nice hotel downtown. Go to that restaurant that you've been wanting to go to." She seemed enthusiastic. We even checked out hotels that night, found one with a rooftop bar she was into. For the next week or so, she would mention someone else who had RSVP'd yes, sharing little stories about them that I didn't know before. There was not a single mention of Alex. I'd heard about him, of course, her serious college boyfriend. Dated almost 3 years, broke up due to distance after graduation. She'd mentioned him here and there over the years, nothing that raised any red flags. But as the reunion approached, just began to act differently. Not anything dramatic, just little nuances. She spent more time on her phone, often smiling at texts. When I'd ask, she'd say reunion planning stuff and change the subject. I didn't think much of it, just sentimental old people, I guess. And then 2 weeks before the event, she set off a bombshell while we were making dinner. "So, I heard that the reunion committee agreed on a no spouses policy for the main event Saturday night," she said, chopping vegetables with an uncommon focus. "They wanted to be real to the college experience or some shit. Is that weird?" I remember pausing, thinking it seemed strange. Yeah, kinda weird. I've never heard of something like that. I know, right? But I suppose they want people to actually reconnect without having to introduce themselves or explain inside jokes. She shrugged. Anyway, I thought I would drive up Saturday, stay over, and drive back Sunday morning. That okay. In retrospect, I should have asked even more questions. But in 7 years of our marriage, I'd never had cause to doubt her. So I basically just said, sure, if that's what they want. Kind of ruins our weekend plans, though. I know. I'm sorry. We'll do Chicago another time, just the two us. The next warning sign should have been how obsessed she suddenly was with what to wear. Jess is typically kind of casual, practical, but professional for teaching, jeans and nice tops for weekends. But she shopped for this reunion as if it were her second wedding. She bought an outfit I never saw, agonized over what shoes would go, even highlighted her hair. When I remarked that she was working awfully hard, she laughed it off. Some of these folks haven't seen me since I was 22. I just don't want to feel like I have completely let myself go. Again, on its face, reasonable enough. Reunions always have people looking good, right? The weekend finally arrived. She packed Friday night, and I noticed she was taking more makeup than usual, along with what seemed to be a different pair of shoes per outfit. She departed Saturday morning with a quick kiss and a "don't wait up." I texted her a few times throughout the day. At first, she responded as normal. Logged in. Lunching with Caitlin before the main event. Normal stuff. Then from around 7, when the main event began, until midnight, hardly anything. A quick, having fun, miss you text that honestly didn't really sound like her typing, at least the version of her I knew. On Sunday morning, she would text me that she was on her way home, and she came around noon looking happy, but exhausted. She talked about catching up with old friends, professors, and shared a couple stories of inebriated classmates making fools of themselves. It was okay, if somewhat slight. That would likely have been the end of it. I didn't suspect anything. I trusted my wife completely. But then on Monday evening, I received a text from my friend Mark that turned everything upside down. Mark's wife Amy also attended Jessica's college, graduating the same year, but they traveled in different social circles. His text was innocuous enough. How was the reunion weekend? Amy had a blast. I texted back that I wouldn't know, given that spouses weren't permitted. He replied with a photo that made my stomach drop. What? That's weird. Amy and I were both there. Here's us at the main event Saturday. The photograph depicted Mark and Amy posing with a group at the apparent reunion. I could see other couples in the background, definitely spouses involved. I stared at that photo for what seemed like an hour, wanting to comprehend. Maybe different departments had different rules? Maybe just misunderstood? Then Mark sent another had-me-on-the-floor message. Wait, did you know Alex was there? He and Jessica appeared to have a strong connection throughout the evening. My hands were actually shaking as I asked him what he meant. They spent a majority of the night together. I just thought you knew that they were friends. Amy said they dated back then. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My head was whirling, suddenly realizing I had been living in a new reality where my wife had chosen to purposefully deceive me. Not a misunderstanding, not a miscommunication. A willful lie to prevent me from going to an event where her ex would also be attending. I didn't question Jessica right away. Something inside me needed to see more evidence before making accusations. So I did something I had never done before, something that made me nauseated as I did it. I checked our phone records. There it was. Dozens of calls and texts to a number I didn't recognize, starting about 3 months before she so much as mentioned the reunion to me. Some calls late at night when I was asleep already. Others during her lunch break at school. It was a clear pattern once I was looking for it. I Googled the number. It belonged to Alex Peterson, her college boyfriend. I still tried to rationalize. Perhaps they were just catching up as old friends. Perhaps she didn't tell me because she thought I'd freak out. But why make up a lie about spouses not being allowed? Why not just hide his presence altogether? The night just got home from work. I asked how the reunion was, looking for specifics. It was the same vague answers, the same handful of friends she mentioned. Without Alex, of course, strangely, all her answers excluded him. I asked point blank whether she saw any of her old boyfriends at the event. She looked me dead in the eyeballs and said, "No, not really." Well, I saw a couple guys I went on dates with, but not someone I actually dated. It was at that moment, watching her lie so effortlessly, married 7 years, was when I felt something inside break. The lives I assumed were stable had fallen apart. The next day, I dug deeper. The reunion had its own hashtag, and people were flooding social media with photos. There was Jess, in multiple pictures, absolutely stunning in a dress I'd never seen. And there was Alex, right next to her in many of the pictures. In one, he had his arm around her waist. In another, they sat next to one another at dinner, gazing into each other's eyes in a fashion that was assuredly not just old friends. Alcohol had obviously been involved. That wasn't an excuse. I printed these pictures with the phone records. Simple, undeniable evidence. When she returned home, I placed them on the kitchen table and I said, "Can you explain this to me?" Her face went white. The change was immediate, from laid back to panic in 1 second. She looked down at the evidence, then up at me, then down at the photos. "Ryan, it's not what it looks like," she began, the classic line. "Alex and I just happened to meet up at the reunion. We dined at the same table together. And the phone calls? Dozens of them, Jessica. Beginning weeks before you even mentioned the reunion to me." She swallowed hard. "We were coordinating. He was planning a few surprises for all of our classmates. And the spouse and no spouse lie?" Her excuses shifted. I wanted a little time to myself, to catch up with old friends without you accidentally feeling excluded or bored. That was harder than I thought it would be. In 7 years, she had never once suggested my presence at social events was a chore. The argument dragged on for hours, raking through denials, minimizations, and deflections. Later, she reconfirmed lying about the spouse's provision, but claimed nothing else untoward occurred between her and Alex. She became defensive, accused me of spying on her, violating her privacy by checking phone records. Where's the trust at, Ryan? I can't believe you do this behind my back. The nerve of her trying to paint me as the villain for exposing her lies was pathetic. I packed an overnight bag and went to stay with my brother Greg for a few days. I needed space to think. I remember those days, the volume of texts and calls from Jess that flooded my phone, the roller coaster of emotions. First apologetic. I'm so sorry I lied. Come home so we can talk. Then defensive. You're making this into something it's not. Then begging. Please don't ruin 7 years over one mistake. Then manipulative. If you really loved me, you'd at least hear me out. Our mutual friends soon chose sides. It seemed at least some people felt I was overreacting to a benign reconnection. Others, people especially who were at the reunion, were suspiciously silent when I mentioned what happened. After roughly a week away, I realized I needed more context from someone who was actually there. I called Amy, Mark's wife, and asked if she would meet me for coffee. What she told me matched my worst fears. Amy told us Jess and Alex were attached at the hip all night. They weren't merely catching up, they were all but joined at the hip. They were very touchy, clearly flirting, and disappeared together for more than an hour during the event. When they returned, Jess's lipstick was askew and Alex's shirt was half-tucked. I'm sorry, Ryan, Amy said softly. I thought you knew they were back together. Mark and I thought maybe you and he had some sort of arrangement. Did you hear them at anything? I asked, nauseated as I said it. Amy hesitated. I heard them talking about reconvening the next weekend, and I said to myself, I have to do something about this. Alex said something about being excited to spend more time together, and Jess said something about a hotel downtown. The following weekend, when Jess was supposed to be at a teacher's convention in Chicago. Another lie. That night, I reviewed our credit card statements. There was indeed a hotel charge in Chicago that weekend. Not the conference hotel where she said she was staying, a boutique place in a totally different neighborhood. I felt as though I was living in some parallel universe. The woman I'd spent years of my life with, the one I trusted wholeheartedly, had engineered a scheme, not a spontaneous blunder, but a cold, premeditated betrayal. I filed for divorce the next week. Jess was genuinely shocked. She came to Greg's work crying and begging him to talk. I offered to meet in a neutral space, the park near our house. She promised nothing serious had happened, said they should go to couples therapy, and offered total transparency going forward. But the trust was gone. How could I possibly ever believe anything she said again? It was just closure, she said. We were just reminiscing about the past. In a hotel room? I asked coldly. She had no answer for that. It felt surreal, the process of separation. I found an apartment, began moving furniture and other items over from our home. Jess resisted the divorce at every turn, declining mediation, disputing even straightforward divisions of assets. It was as if she assumed that if she delayed it long enough, I'd just give up and return. What she didn't know was that with every delay, my resolve hardened. I was mourning not only the end of my marriage, but the person I thought I knew. The Jess that I married wouldn't have done this, which meant that either she had changed fundamentally, or I had never known her at all. Either way, there was no turning back. And then came the least surprising aspect of this mess. A few weeks after I filed, I bumped into Chris at a bar downtown. Chris had been a college roommate of Alex's, and while we were not really close, we had seen each other a handful of times at group gatherings over the years. He remembered my face and clumsily inquired how I was doing with everything. I made an evasive reply, but he looked uncomfortable. After a few beers and small talk, I got straight to the point. You know about Jess and Alex, right? He seemed genuinely torn. Look, man, I don't want to get involved in this. I'm already in the process of divorce, I said. I know they reconnected. I know about the reunion and then the hotel afterward. I'm just trying to figure out what actually happened. After some more hesitance, he finally spoke. Alex and Jess hadn't simply reconnected at the reunion, Chris said. They'd been in touch for months, ever since Alex's divorce was finalized. Chris knew because Alex had spent some time with him and hadn't been subtle about the calls. At the reunion, Alex told me they slept together, Chris sheepishly admitted. And then again that weekend at the hotel. Well, he said she told him you guys were basically over, just going through the motions. I felt sick. We weren't. Not even close. Chris looked genuinely sorry. That's what I figured. Look, Alex has always been a little bit of a player. After his marriage fell apart, he began contacting exes. Jess was apparently super responsive. The worst part was discovering that Jess initiated it, tracking down Alex on LinkedIn about 3 months before the reunion. Everything had started with her, and she had constructed the entire life from scratch. I did not inform my attorney of this discussion, It would not change anything legally in our no-fault state, but it did erase any doubts I may have had about whether I was doing the right thing. Weeks passed. I settled into my new apartment and got used to living alone again. Then one night, Jess just appeared, unannounced, with takeout from our favorite Thai place, saying she only wanted to talk. Despite my better judgment, I allowed her inside. She began with small talk about mutual friends, her work, casual things. Then finally got to the reason why she was really there. She wanted another chance. "Ryan, we can get past this," she insisted. "People make mistakes. Marriages survive worse." I wasn't going to, but I ended up telling her what Chris told me. About how she was the one who had reached out first. About how she'd told Alex our marriage was over. About how that was not just once, but many times. I expected additional denials, more lies. Instead, her expression simply crumpled. And through tears, she delivered a new version. "It was really just meant to be closure," she said. "I saw on Facebook that he was divorced, and I was curious. I didn't ever expect anything physical to happen. I just wanted one last look, to make sure that ending everything was the right decision all those years ago." "And was it?" I asked coldly. "Yes. That's why this is so stupid and so not worth ruining our marriage." What I realized was that I didn't have anything real for him anymore. It was just nostalgia and far too much wine. It meant nothing. If it was nothing, why did you meet him again after the reunion? Why are you lying about the conference? That she had no good answer for. A few days later, I received an unexpected phone call from Alex himself. Talk about surreal. He offered me a half-ass apology, saying it was just one kiss that got out of hand, and Jess had confided that our marriage was already in trouble. He said he had backed off when he discovered that she was still hung up on making it work with you. What was funny was how soon after that call Jess suddenly agreed to all my terms for the divorce after staunchly fighting them for weeks. I suppose they coordinated their stories and figured damage control was the way to go. We listed our house and received offers immediately, the only simple part of this ordeal. Jess dropped by with her dad to pick up some of her stuff from the house before the closing. Her dad, whom I had always liked, pulled me aside and told me that he'd forgiven Jess's mom for a similar indiscretion in the early years of their marriage, and how grateful he was that they'd pushed through it for the sake of their family. I loved the sentiment, but it wasn't the same. The fact that Jess's deception was so calculated, spending months planning this thing, devising complicated lies, gaslighting me when I tried to question her, that wasn't a one-off screw-up. That was a total betrayal of everything we'd built. Later that afternoon, Jess requested a private audience. She acknowledged, for the first time, more than just nothing happened. She admitted that yes, spouses were welcome at the reunion. She did plan to meet up with Alex there. Yes, they had kissed, but she claimed that was all. She said they had gone somewhere alone just to discuss his recent divorce, and that was what Amy had seen. She bought me a watch I had been wanting months before all this, as a gift for our upcoming anniversary. I awkwardly accepted it, not knowing what else to do. The following day, Alex texted me to repeat the same, just a kiss, narrative that Jess had given. It was almost comical how suddenly they coordinated. From there, I transitioned into rebuilding. I invested time in decorating my new place. I spent time with friends who had supported me, and I threw myself into projects at work. I heard from mutual friends that Jess was saying that I'd been controlling and paranoid, and that's what made her turn outwards for comfort. Some believed her, others did not. I had trouble dredging up energy to set the record straight. The truth would be known someday, and all the people who had genuinely known me wouldn't buy her take anyway. When I was nearing the end of my divorce, I got an email from Jess. I almost just deleted it without reading, but curiosity got the better of me. It was a full confession. Not just a kiss, but yes, they'd been sleeping together. Not just once at the reunion, but twice that weekend and again at the conference. She finally admitted that she had planned it all, and that she had contacted Alex weeks before she even brought up the reunion in the first place. She even admitted saying that our marriage was unhappy as a reason to carry on their affair. "I don't even know why I did it," she said in the post. "We were good together. I guess I just wondered what would have happened on the road less taken, and then one led to another. I fought the divorce so vigorously not because I believed we could reconcile, but rather because I was afraid of everyone knowing what I'd done. I've told people you were jealous and controlling because I couldn't bear the shame of admitting what actually happened. I spoke to my lawyer to see if this admission affected anything legally. It didn't, and I chose to not fight for different terms even though I had written proof of her affair. I just wanted it over with. The divorce was completed last week." I received a call yesterday from Jess's sister apologizing for how her family had treated me. Apparently, Jess finally broke down and told her parents the whole truth, and they were horrified. Her father, in particular, was eager to apologize for pressuring me to come to terms. Then this morning, Jess texted and asked if we could meet one last time. She needed to return some personal stuff, so she said. We met in a coffee shop where she gave me a small box with my grandfather's cufflinks that I believed had been forgotten in the move. She looked different, thinner, tired. She said she was still seeing a therapist to help her understand why she had done what she had done. Before we departed, she said, "Could we be friends someday?" I politely declined. Some bridges can't be rebuilt once burned. And to be honest, I don't think I could ever look at her again without seeing all the lies. So that's where I am now. Single at 40, starting over. Some days feel very much harder than others. I still experience phases where I grieve the life we lived, or more specifically, the life I imagined we lived. But I'm also discovering a strange comfort. While it has been painful, I'm sure living with someone who is capable of such deception would be worse in the long run.